Dear Grade 12, I am Mrs. V. Ramlal. Welcome to the Junior Tucky Winter School for Grade 12s. There will be a series of videos which will be live streamed in the next few weeks on Junior Tucky Online. Please use this material as revision and also look at all the Grade 12 content in Life Sciences on Junior Tucky Online. In this video, I will be looking at the November 2021 Paper 1 Question 3. Question 3.1. The diagram below shows the human brain and the human kidney. As you can see, this first diagram is the human brain, the second diagram is the human kidney. Right, 3.1.1. Identify part A. Part A I colored in yellow. And in yellow, you can see that part that's colored in yellow looks like the tree of life. But the correct name is cerebellum. Right, 3.1.2. State one function of part C. They only want one function. And we can see C is the purple part. That is the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum, we know, links the right and the left hemisphere together and also allows for communication between these two hemispheres. If you can see, this is the answer that they require. But they only want one, so you have a choice of which one to remember and learn. 3.1.3. A person sustained a head injury in a car accident and lost its memory. Write down the letter and name of the part of the brain that was affected. Letter and name. So we know memory is controlled by the cerebrum. And here with the pointer, I'm showing you that this is the cerebrum and the label that matches that is D. So D, cerebrum. Then 3.1.4. During an emergency situation, gland E releases a hormone that prepares the body for a fight or flight response by stimulating an increase in breathing rate and heart rate. This increase leads to an increased energy production in the skeletal muscles and an increase in blood carbon dioxide levels. A. Name the hormone secreted by gland E in an emergency situation. Gland E, that's the one I colored in a lighter purple. That's the adrenal gland. But they're asking you the hormone, and the hormone secreted by the adrenal gland is adrenaline. B. Explain how an increase in breathing rate and heart rate results in increased energy production in skeletal muscles for 4 marks. Now we know when we're increasing our breathing, we know immediately there's going to be more air or oxygen inhaled. Heart rate, if your heart rate is increasing, that means more blood is going to be pumped faster to the cells with oxygenated blood. And what's in that oxygenated blood with more glucose and oxygen? You should remember that oxygen and glucose is used to increase the rate of cellular respiration. So when you see more oxygen and glucose, always make sure your answer will have more or higher rate of cellular respiration. So that is how breathing and heart rate increases the amount of cellular respiration. So the more glucose and oxygen you have, that will increase your rate of cellular respiration. Right. C. Describe how part B is involved in carbon dioxide homeostasis. This is a very nice question. This question comes out a lot in the matric exams. So we know part B. Part B is the medulla oblongata. If the medulla oblongata is stimulated, the medulla oblongata will send impulses to the heart. That means more oxygenated blood is going to be sent to the lungs. So more oxygen can get to the lungs and more carbon dioxide with the blood, which is in the deoxygenated blood, will be sent to the heart so you can get rid of it. Then the breathing muscles will also be stimulated. So you are increasing the rate and depth of breathing so you can exhale more carbon dioxide faster and you can get rid of the carbon dioxide in your blood and your levels can return back to normal. Let's revise the brain quickly. This is my diagram I made for the brain. And these are my mnemonics. Now in pink, that's the cerebrum. And the cerebrum makes up bulk of the brain. And the mnemonic that I teach is VHS. The V stands for controls voluntary actions. So right now, me moving the laser, that's the cerebrum that's controlling that. H, the cerebrum is responsible for higher thought processes, such as what you're busy doing now, memory, thinking. And S picks up sensations. And the two sensations you have learned, sight and sound. Right, the green, that's a cerebellum. The cerebellum, I teach the mnemonic as BEM. The cerebellum is responsible for B, balance, E, equilibrium, and M, muscle tone. Now, the cerebrum controls voluntary actions while the cerebellum coordinates voluntary actions. In yellow, that's the corpus callosum. It links the two hemispheres of the brain together, the right and the left hemisphere. And all the processes between the two hemispheres communicate via the corpus callosum. I also wrote that females have a larger corpus callosum. That's what allows us to multitask. Then, this is the pituitary gland, and above the pituitary gland is the hypothalamus. The mnemonic for the hypothalamus is BB-SATE. So, the hypothalamus is responsible for blood pressure, body temperature, sleep, appetite, thirst, and emotions. And then, very important, in blue, I colored the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for breathing and heart rate. Below the medulla oblongata is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is responsible for reflex actions, very different, has a white matter on the outside, gray matter on the inside, and the brain has gray matter on the outside and white matter on the inside. Right, it's a nice diagram to help you remember the parts of the brain. Right, let's get down to question 3.2. The table below shows the average rate of blood flow to the skin at different environmental temperatures. Here's the environmental temperature. There's the average rate of blood flow to the skin in milliliters per 100 milliliter tissue per minute. 3, 2, 1. Give the environmental temperature at which there was the greatest average rate of blood flow to the skin. Greatest average blood flow, I can see that's 19. What's the degrees? 50 degrees Celsius. Answer and unit, please. 322. Describe the relationship between the environmental temperature and the average rate of blood flow to the skin. I can see as the environmental temperature is increasing, the average rate of blood flow to the skin is also increasing. 323. Calculate the percentage increase in blood flow to the skin between 35 degrees and 5 degrees. So 35 and 5 degrees. So our formula here is difference over the first multiplied by 100. So the difference between 11 and 4 is 7 over the first number, which is 4, multiplied by 100, which is 175%. Then, explain the average rate of blood flow to the skin between 20 and 45 degrees. Explain, 4 marks. Between 20 and 45 degrees. Now I can see between 20 to 45 degrees, the temperature is increasing, and that will cause the average rate of blood flow in the skin to also increase. That means the blood vessels are dilating. It's getting hotter. Blood vessels are dilating, so more blood flows to the surface of the skin, so more heat is lost by radiation. 325. Frostbite is a condition where long-term exposure to extremely cold conditions leads to death in areas like the hands and the feet. Now, cold conditions is 0 degrees or less. Use data from the table to explain why tissue might die. Now, at 0 degrees, there's only 2.5 milliliters of blood flowing to the tissues per minute. We know in blood that there is obviously oxygen and nutrients. So, less blood flows to the skin, there'll be less oxygen and nutrients, and the cells will die. The other answer you could have had, less blood flows to the skin, more carbon dioxide and waste accumulate, and the cells could die. Right, let's get down to the last part. The second last part of the question, 3.3.1. Describe the negative feedback mechanism that occurs when the thyroxine levels up in the blood are high. This is a very important question for 5 marks. Now we know when the thyroxine levels are high, we know the pituitary gland will be stimulated. Why? To secrete less thyroid-stimulating hormone. The low thyroid-stimulating levels in the blood will cause the thyroid gland to secrete less thyroxine, which will bring the thyroxine levels back to normal. This is very important. Make sure you know this. 332. A person has a medical condition that results in undersecretion of thyroxine. Explain why this person will gain weight if the thyroxine levels remain continuously low in the blood. Now we know thyroxine is responsible for your metabolism, which is your rate of cell respiration. And if your metabolism decreases, or the rate of cell respiration decreases, there will be less glucose broken down. More glucose will be stored as fat or glycogen, and that will increase your weight or your mass. Let's look at the negative feedback mechanism that controls the blood thyroxine levels. Now, this is a nice diagram to illustrate that. The red line represents the normal level of thyroxine in the blood. So, you always start off with normal and end off with normal. So, when the thyroxine levels are high, after your levels have been normal, it goes high, so the levels of thyroxine in the blood are high. The pituitary gland will secrete less thyroid-stimulating hormone. This will act on the thyroid gland to produce less thyroxine, and that will bring your levels back to normal. Then, your normal blood thyroxine level. When your blood thyroxine levels go too low, the pituitary gland will secrete more thyroid stimulating hormone, which will act on the thyroid gland to produce more thyroxine and bring your levels back to normal. And then there's the explanation there. This is very important. Do not go into your exam without knowing this one. 3.4. A group of learners conducted an investigation to determine the effect of auxins on the growth of stems in bean seedlings. I underline this in yellow because this is the aim. In the aim, you have your dependent and your independent variable. The procedure was as follows. The tea bean seeds were allowed to germinate for 5 days to produce seedlings. The seedlings were divided into 3 groups, A, B, C, of 10 seedlings each. The tips of the 10 seedlings were cut at the same length. In Group A, the cut tip was placed back on the top of the young stem. In Group B, the tip was not placed back. In Group C, a piece of plastic was placed on the top of the cut surface, and then the tip was then placed on the top of the plastic. The seedlings in all the groups were placed in a dark cupboard for a week. The growth of the stem was then observed. The diagram below shows how the seedlings in each group were treated. 3.4.1. Identify the dependent variable in this investigation. So what are you actually measuring? It tells you here in this procedure, growth of the stem. It tells you here in the aim, growth of the stem. So your answer is stem growth or growth of the stem. 3.4.2. Why did the learners cut the tips of the young stem? What is in the tip of the young stem? We know auxin is in the tip of the young stem. So they wanted to remove the tips, which was the source of auxin. 3.4.3. Give one reason why 10 bean seedlings were used in each group. We know when you increase the number, that is used to increase the reliability. Here the examiner also accepted validity. 3.4.3. Write on the letters A, B, C of the groups where there will be no growth of the stem. Now we know for a fact B, no tip, no growth. C, there's no auxin that is exposed to the growth to the stem, so there's no growth. So your answer will be B and C. 3.4.5. Describe how auxin causes apical dominance. Now we know that auxin is present at the tips, and the auxin is present at the tips because it causes the growth upwards. So presence of auxin in the tip causes growth upwards of the stem. And by auxin being at the tips, it will inhibit the development of lateral branches. Now, 3.4.6. Name the plant hormone other than auxin that promotes germination of seeds. That, of course, is gibberellins. B, that even inhibits the germination of seeds. That is abscisic acid. Right. And now I think it's finally the last part of question 3. I keep on telling you end, and the end didn't seem to be coming in sight. But now we're finally at the end. So, the bluefin tuna, the great white shark, and the bottlenose dolphin are 3 aquatic species that are found in the Indian Ocean. An adult bluefin tuna releases up to 540 million eggs into the water annually, while the great white shark female produces 2 to 12 offspring through ovoviviparity every 2 years. A bottlenose dolphin female, being a mammal, is viviparous and produces 1 offspring every 2 to 3 years. 3.5.1. Name the type of fertilization that takes place in the bottlenose dolphin. The bottlenose dolphin is a mammal. It's vivipary, so the type of fertilization can only be internal fertilization. 3.5.2. Explain how 2 of the reproductive strategies of the great white shark increases its reproductive success. So let's look at the great white shark. It's ovovivipary. So fertilization is internal. So that will increase the chances of fertilization, and the ovum or the egg is inside the female's body where it's protected. Very well protected from predators and environmental conditions. 3.5.3. Explain one reason why the bluefin tuna releases a large number of eggs. Large number of eggs, we know, increases the chances of fertilization, as the eggs could be lost to predators or destroyed by environmental factors because, of course, there is external fertilization. Thank you for joining me and watching question 3 of the November 2021 exam paper. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.